I now have the next 15 minutes to share with you about a different part of South America, about the southern tip of South America, and very different and very contrasting to Colombia, what Chris has just ran through. I was very lucky to do the PA trip and to when I'm going to share this experience with you over the next 15 minutes. Argentina itself, quite an incredibly vast, it's actually, believe it or not, the eighth largest country in the world, which a lot of people get quite surprised by. It's 2,000 miles long by nearly 1,000 miles wide, so it makes it very big. And it's the second largest country in South America after Brazil. It has for that same reason, it has 15 different ecosystems throughout. So it was what we would call a country of contrasts. You have the vast plains in the north, and then you have all the absolutely stunning glacial cut landscapes of the south, which is what I'm going to be talking to you in the next 15 minutes. But Argentina's also got quite a few quirky bits about it. It's quite different to the rest of South America in that it had a very low native population when the Spanish first arrived there. And actually, today's population has still got some of the native groups, but 95% of the population of Argentina is actually from European descendancy, mainly the Spanish, but also Italian and Germans as well. So it does have quite a different cultural feeling to it as well. Um, and Argentina is actually named after silver. When the Spanish first arrived there, they had this great thing that was going to be part of the silver rush and that they were going to find silver there. But unfortunately, they didn't find it, Argentum as it is in Latin, but the name has stuck and we have Argentina today. So our trip, Adventures in Patagonia, as you can see, it spans the whole length of the country, starting at the top and jumping to the bottom. Our trip the adventures actually covers mainly what is the southern tip and the area known as Patagonia. And this is all the incredible landscapes carved out by the glaciers. The Patagonian ice field is the second largest, well, it's the largest ice field outside of the poles themselves. And it has carved the most incredible scenery and landscapes on both the Chilean and the Argentinian side. It has a lot of history in the area as well. Hence, what I actually find quite funny when you're talking about Argentina, most of the places in the south of Argentina, in the Patagonian region, which was explored, discovered, mapped out, most of them are named after important people in history as well. And one of the most important periods is in history was when in the early 1800s, just after independence, when the Argentinians were mapping their own country and they were naming it and going down. And one of the famous ones is Francisco Moreno, known as Perito Moreno, which the glacier is now named after. And while he was doing this, he started the foundation in the early 1800s of the national park system in Argentina. And today, Argentina has 35 national parks across it, covering vast areas of protected land as well. And we're going to be very lucky in the next 10 minutes taking a journey through the main five national parks of Argentina and Chile. Um, so I'll take you through a little bit more about the landscape itself once we move on to the next slides. But our actual journey starts in the capital itself. So Buenos Aires, often referred to as the Paris of South America. It does still have some of the colonial feeling that many of the other capitals around the Americas have that feeling of. But again, as I mentioned, it has a real European feel to it as well. We spend a couple of days in Buenos Aires itself, just exploring. And one of the most beautiful parts of Buenos Aires, which I definitely love, was La Boca, which you can see the picture of in the left-hand corner here. La Boca was actually, it came from when the Italian immigrants came across, and this was a working neighborhood. So this was one of the poorest neighborhoods in Buenos Aires at its time. And over the last 20, 30 years, it's become very popular and the place to be seen. It's very colorful, it's full of bars and cafes, and it's also a place where you can just sit, chill out, have a coffee, and suddenly you will have some dancing in the streets. And that's the great tango. The birthplace of tango is Buenos Aires, and it is everywhere. People dance in the streets, and it is so amazing to watch. We'll spend some time exploring La Boca, and then we'll also explore some of the government buildings and the city centre before then ending out at the San Telmo, which is the market area of Buenos Aires as well. It has some incredible antique markets which you can visit. But we've also allowed for some free time in Buenos Aires. I think one of the main things that everyone wants to see when we go into Buenos Aires is the place of the burial of Eva Perón, one of the most famous characters to come out of Argentinian history. You have time, your tour leader will help you get down to the Recoleta Cemetery. I refer to it as a city in a city. It is enormous. And although Eva Perón is the most famous personality that we would know that was buried there, just wandering, it's almost like streets. You'd be amazed at the amount of famous Argentinian people that are buried in this cemetery. So definitely worth a visit. And also, you wouldn't be visiting Buenos Aires without a visit, an evening night out to the tango and dinner. We can help organize that as well. So, the evenings, they have these beautiful big auditoriums. You sit down, you have a wonderful Argentinian meal with some wine, and also watch an incredible tango show. So, lots and lots to do in Buenos Aires before we then jump on a plane and head all the way down to the tip of South America, often referred to as the end of the world. What I didn't actually realize when I first went there was incredible. It's an island. Ushuaia and Tierra del Fuego is not actually attached to the mainland of South America. It is totally broken away by the Straits of Magellan, and it's quite incredible. There's a whole archipelago of islands, but there's one island which is called La Isla Grande, the big island of Tierra del Fuego. Why is it Tierra del Fuego? Basically, it's a bit of history here. So, in Magellan, when he discovered the Straits in the 1519, and he looked over onto the islands from the mainland when he discovered the entrance to the Straits, and he saw lots of fires. And this was the Yangful people who lived on the islands at the time. And that's because that's how they lit. They used it for light, they used it for heat, and they used it to communicate with each other as well. So he saw all these fires, and hence the name Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. We're going to spend a couple of days exploring this absolute haven of wildlife and nature and landscapes. We'll do a couple of very small, short walks in the national park itself, hopefully get a peek at the most southerly post office in the world, and also spend some time in Ushuaia itself, the largest southern city. Um, we have left some free time in this area as well, because I think a reason that many people want to go down here is to see the lovely little fella in the right-hand corner of my slide, the Magellan penguins. And I must say that was one of my reasons for going. I wanted to see a penguin. And did I see a penguin? I saw that the photo in the middle is one of my photos. I saw a penguin. I saw many penguins. There's two ways that you can go and see the penguins. You can either do it by boat or you can do it by land. So you can take a catamaran that goes through the Beagle Channel down to Isla Martillo. And I did the catamaran, and that's the photo from the catamaran. It gets very close, not too close to frighten the penguins, and you see them all on the island. Or you can go to Estancia Harberton, which is one of the ranches, a private ranch where you can walk across the causeway and go and walk with the penguins. So you have two options of how to see the penguins. If penguins aren't your thing, you can also take a boat trip in the Beagle Channel itself, where you can see the sea lions, which are incredible out on the rocks. If going out on the water isn't your thing either, you can also spend some time in Ushuaia, where there's an incredible maritime museum, bearing in mind that we're down at the tip of the world where many of the early explorers traveled through here. So it's got an incredible maritime history, and the museum itself is worth quite a bit of time on your visit as well. So after going around and visiting as much as we can in the area, we then start heading back north and back onto the mainland. So in order to get onto the mainland, you have to cross the Straits of Magellan, and we take a public bus traveling. It's a full day's drive. We do refer to it as a full day's drive, but it has many, many stops. And these photos, well, two of these photos were taken by myself. I didn't get quite as good a photo of the crested caracara himself, But the Patagonian fat fox and the guanaco, I took on that bus ride. We have lots of stops where we can jump off the bus, and the wildlife going up is just incredible. I'm going to compete with Chris's 1,900 birds here. Argentina has over 1,000 clock birds as well, so you do get a real variety again from the mountains to the coasts. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the tropical rainforest as well in Iguazu when I talk about that. But an incredible a haven for wildlife and birds. And that's what is really interesting on the drive up. It's also broken by doing your border crossings because you're going into Chile and also doing the ferry ride across the Magellan Straits over to where we stay for one night at the end of the journey in Chile before we start heading into the gateway of Torres del Paine. Torres del Paine, um, stunning. When I try to find words to describe this scenery, I think I just got off the bus and I was absolutely stunned. Historically, millions of years of geology here. It was a subterranean volcano where it actually erupted underground. If you think of the whole Andreas Fault, it erupted under the ground, but it didn't reach the earth. So it cooled very slowly and produced this very hard granite. And then over millions of years, you had sedimentary rock put on top of it and lay on top of it. And then gradually, with years and years of glacial erosion, we've ended up with these fantastic exposed peaks, torres, as they're known in Spanish. So, and Torres, Torres National Park is the one where you see the famous three peaks. We're going to spend 3 days, 2 nights, sorry, 3 nights, 2 days here exploring with walks. I mean, the one way to enjoy this sort of scenery is through walks, or as you can see down in the bottom photo, through the window of the hotel with a glass of wine as well. But no, the main reason we're going there is to walk and explore as well. Although it is a discovery trip, there are walks, but none of them are too difficult. They're only a couple of hours long. They're on flat lands. Your tour leaders will talk to you about the degree of walks and how long they are. And if you're a little bit concerned about that, they can talk you through them all. However, if you are up for a little bit more of a challenge, there is quite a challenging walk that you can do here in Torres del Paine, and that is the climb up to the base of Torres. It's the base of Torres Trek. We've left that as optional for anyone who's up for the optional, for more of a challenge, and that will take you to the foot of the three peaks that you see. It's approximately 15 miles the trek, and it is a lot of climbing in quite challenging terrain as well. But as I said, if you're up for the challenge, a definite must as well. And if you just want a little break from walking altogether, we also have the Zodiac boat trip, where you can go to down the Serrano River straight from the hotel, and it takes you down to the Serrano Glacier, which you see down at the bottom. You come off the Zodiacs and you go out to a lookout point where you can get some really great photos of the Serrano Glacier as well. So if you want to take a little break from the walking, jump on a boat and take a boat trip up to see the glacier. So those 3 days spent in beautiful Chile and in the Torres National Park. We then head back into Argentina as we drive across. It's about a half-day drive back into Argentina, into El Calafate, to the Perito Moreno National Park to see the most iconic glacier, I think, in the world today. I was mesmerized at the size of it. It was just incredible. These cliff edges are over 170 meters high of ice. Just seeing it even from a bit of a distance initially. And then you get down, as you see in the photo, just if you look down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's the little lookouts that you get down quite close to it. So you do get some amazing views of it. So we'll spend the day walking around the area and taking photos of the Perito Moreno, but also for those who want to get a little bit closer, you can walk on it, which I did. So they call it the Glacier Trek, and you tie on your crampons and off you go and do a little bit of ice hiking as such, led by very professional guides. And it's a very controlled walk and it doesn't damage the glaciers at all. It's done on the edge of it and it's done safely as well. And It's always celebrated with a little glass of Tia Maria, not very Argentinian, but a Tia Maria at the end, with a little bit of glacial ice in it to celebrate having completed that trek. So that can also be arranged. And sorry, just to say, the penguin trips and this trip need to be pre-booked. They're very popular. And they need to be pre-booked in advance. And if you look on our trip notes, we have the process on how we can pre-book them for you if you're interested in them. And then after visiting Perito Moreno, we then pop on to our last national park, which is it's into El Chaltén. So this is our last destination in the Chaltén area. And the main reason again here is for the wonderful trekking land of up to Mount Fitzroy. So Mount Fitzroy, as you can see here, named after the captain of the infamous Beagle, the ship who went traveling with Darwin through the Beagle Channel. And in Chaltén, again, we spend a couple of nights and with a full day of walking. The walk itself is quite incredible. It is in the flat, and then it has a slightly little higher part at the end where you do need to do some climbing. It's a circular walk, and this is actually a 16-mile round trip, which is an included part of the trip. But again, if you're not wanting to do that much walking, Chaltén National Park is full of 1 2 hour little circular walks around the glacial lakes, which are absolutely stunning as well. So you may want to just choose to relax by the hotel, do some little short walks around, and enjoy the incredible scenery of what is Chaltén National Park. And then I couldn't do a presentation without talking about food and drink. For people who know me here in the office, they know that it's always my favorite highlight of my travel. In Argentina definitely comes up trumps here. The whole cuisine of Argentina is shaped by its landscape itself. So obviously, it's got the big altiplanos, which is all perfect for the cattle grazing and sheep farming as well. And then you've got the foothills of the Andes, which provides a perfect location for incredible wine production. I definitely did find visiting a bar in this was in Puerto Natales quite challenging when you see the selections of wine they have. But there will definitely be some opportunities for drinking a little bit of Malbec, as you can see above, from a penguin wine pourer. um, but yes, the wine, absolutely amazing. And of course, the infamous asado, the Argentinian beef. Well, you can I don't know. I eat beef here in the UK, but I just don't think that anything could beat the asados that I had in Argentina. Um, Also part of the very local speciality, I call it, is their version of a Cornish pasty, but they're better known as empanadas, stuffed with beef as well. I don't want to put the fear of life into vegetarians here, because I suppose it's a lot about it. They are the biggest meat-eating population in the world. Obviously because it all comes from there. But there are vegetarian restaurants. You can eat vegetarian food. They do vegetarian empanadas, which are absolutely delicious as well. So there are very good opportunities for vegetarians traveling on this. So I'm sorry to any vegetarians on the call, but meat is one of the most popular dishes in Argentina. They also have a bit of a sweet tooth, and the top picture is something that's called an alfajor. The alfajor is basically it's like a shortbread biscuit filled with a really sweet sort of carnation milk, but it's toffee. And then you get coconut or chocolate round the side of it. It's just heaven in heaven on a plate. If they're ever brought into the office, we fight over them because they're so delicious. And of course, that can be washed down with a little bit of Argentinian wine and a glass of mate. For those who don't drink wine, mate is a herbal tea, an energizing herbal tea, very popular throughout Argentina. Finally, I just wanted to quickly touch on what I mentioned earlier is if you're going to travel halfway across the world, make it worth your time and add a little bit on. So we have the Iguazu extension, which is a 3 day, 2 night extension, which you can add on to the end from Buenos Aires. It's a quick flight up to the falls. You do a half day at the Brazilian side and then jump on to the Argentinian side and spend a full day exploring on that side. On the Argentinian side, you get very close and comfortable with the falls, and it is a full day. There's so much to explore on the falls. And then you fly back to Buenos Aires where the tour ends. 14-day trip with 13 days in very comfortable hotels. Best time to travel, October to March. And also very good time for seeing the penguins. But also, while you're out there, make it a little bit longer, and you can add the 4-day extension to Easter Island, which can also be tagged on to your Patagonia and Iguazu trip as well by just jumping over to Santiago de Chile and taking a flight out to Easter Island.